Hey y'all, welcome back to Sillage and Sorcery. I'm your co-host, B. Sampson, and this is...
Melissa Sifjardóttir.
Today, we're uncovering the secrets of perfumery's most coveted and mysterious ingredients, ambergris.
And expensive,
And
right?
expensive, and very expensive. And we're going to be talking from its origins in the ocean to its rise as a luxury in modern perfumery. Ambergris has captivated us for centuries. Like, I shit you not, when I was doing research for this, I was blown away at how long we've known of its existence and have used it for so many things. I'll be guiding you through the science, history, and chemical evolution of ambergris, setting the stage for our exploration of its role in pop culture and modern fragrance. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Let's start with the basics. If you're a perfumer, you already know what this is. I don't need to tell you. But if you're the average person and you know jack shit about perfumery, you're probably wondering, what the hell?
Most of the people who are going to be listening to this podcast, I think. So, the average person, we're trying to put this into layman's terms because not everybody is making a bunch of bottles of stuff at their own house.
Exactly. So the average person is not going to know what it is, but let's talk about it. What actually is ambergris? So ambergris is an organic substance that forms in the intestines of the sperm whale. Yeah.
So gross.
You heard that. Yes, it comes from the sperm whale. It's actually a kind of like waxy, fatty material that's produced when a sperm whale consumes squid and cuttlefish, both of which have very tough beaks that would just like destroy the intestine of the whale. So it produces this substance to coat it, right? And then it eventually will start to irritate the whale, and then the whale will excrete it into the ocean. What's interesting though is not every whale does this, which is why it's super rare. So not every sperm whale is going to produce ambergris, only a few of them. So you can imagine its use in perfumery. If you have this rare material, of course it's going to be coveted, you know? So when it's first expelled, it's black and it's mixed with waste and blood, which smells, let's just say if the smell of fish and the smell of ammonia had a baby, that's what fresh ambergris smells like. Yeah.
That sounds really like a very typical perfume ingredient.
Fish piss. Yeah. Like cat pee and fish. Yum. But here's when the magic happens, right? It floats in the ocean, and as it does that, it's exposed to salt water, sunlight, and air. And as it's floating there, which sometimes it takes years for it to be able to wash up on shore because it's in the middle of the ocean, it transforms. Over time, the once offensive smell changes into something that's a little bit warm, it's musky, and almost amber-like, which is why it's been revered in perfumery for centuries. The key to ambergris' iconic fragrance is in its chemical composition, though. The main compound responsible for its distinctive scent is amberin. It's a type of fatty oil, and it's the cornerstone of ambergris' fragrance, providing a musky, woody, and amber notes that makes it so prized by people like us, perfumers. As it ages, the composition changes, with compounds like ambroxide or ambroxan forming, which deepens the scents and adds a more earthy, balsamic, and woody undertone to it. So, for those that are curious, let's talk about the chemical composition a little bit further. Amberin is a terpenoid found compound, and it's in the heart of ambergris. And when it's exposed to air and salt water, amberin undergoes a transformation, oxidizing into ambroxide. And that's what gives ambergris its signature dry musk-like quality. And over time, you get a richer and more complex fragrance profile that we associate with aged ambergris. In addition to these two key compounds, ambergris also contains aldehydes and fatty acids. The aldehydes in ambergris, such as dodecanol, contribute a marine fatty quality, which gives fresh ambergris its sharp, disgusting smell. As the ambergris ages, though, the aldehydes dissipate, and what's left is a sweeter, more mellow ambery scent. The fatty acids like palmitic and stearic acid, lends that earthy animalic like base that grounds the overall scent. And then finally, ketones such as methyl ketones reinforce the leathery and musky aspects of ambergris. So super crazy. I love that, like how as it's just like floating out in the ocean, this like massive like nastiness, it just like goes through this beautiful transformation, and we can't get enough of it in scent.
But it's also so Venus coded. There was a lot that came up with my
Yeah.
research too. And we'll talk about that later. But it's very Venus coded.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from like the fact it's luxury and expensive, but also it's born out of the ocean. It needs to go through like a transformation in the ocean by being exposed to sunlight. It's so Venus coded.
Very Venusian for sure. Which actually is a good segue. Let's talk about it in history. While we don't know exactly who discovered ambergris, we do know that ancient cultures were among the first to document and use it. In ancient Greece, Hippocrates, or is it Hippocrates? Hippocrates?
I mean, everybody who spoke that language originally is dead, so go for it. That's how I feel about Hecate. Like,
As I'm butchering it, I'm like, it's Hippocrates. No, Hippocrates.
Hippocrates? Yeah.
Hippocrates, yes.
But still, same thing goes. Everybody who originally spoke the language is dead, so I think we can just try our best.
Hippocrates referred to ambergris as a medicinal substance, thinking it had therapeutic benefits for a wide range of conditions, including digestive issues and melancholy, which today we would just say depression. But I actually kind of like the idea of being diagnosed with melancholy. I just think it sounds like fucking metal as hell.
But also, like, in the 1800s, when you had to, like, go to the sea to cure your melancholy, like, I just need time at the beach just to look at the waves.
And then in the Roman era, we have Pliny the Elder, who mentioned ambergris, noting that it actually came from Wales and had various uses, including in perfumes and medicine. And then fast forward to the Arab world, ambergris was highly prized. The Arabs were the first to incorporate it into perfumes, medicines, and even food. They called it canbar, and it eventually became known in French as ambergris or gray amber to distinguish it from the more common yellow amber that we see in like, like amber stones or like frankincense. And so, yeah, ambergris. The name's stuck ever since. We just were like, that makes sense. Gray amber. Let's stick with it. But ambergris wasn't just valued for its fragrance. During the Renaissance, it was considered a panacea and cure-all. Physicians believed it could treat everything from digestive issues to melancholy, like we said, but it was also thought to be an aphrodisiac, and so it was used the occasional love potion. Which, so funny that you say Venusian, because, hello, aphrodisiac, love potion, coming from the ocean. That's so cool. I love that. Yeah. I'm a Venus bitch, yeah.
You're a Venus bitch, so it would make sense.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that, yeah, ambergris is so cool. The thought of like using it in a love potion or a love spell, I'm like, gotta get my hands on some true ambergris, but your bitch is broke. I ain't got that kind of money. And the possibility of me finding some just washed up on shore is like little to none. Can you imagine in the medieval period they also would use it sparingly in food? Can you imagine eating ambergris?
No, from my modern perspective, absolutely not. But it's interesting too that whales create it from their digestive system. So the idea of it working for humans, like, of course.
So weird. So by the mid 20th century, true ambergris began to disappear from perfumery for a variety of reasons. First is the overharvesting, which led to a scarcity of ambergris. And as more sperm whales were hunted for their oil and ambergris, then came the international bans on whaling, which further limited the availability of natural ambergris. In the 80s, as sperm whale populations became protected, it became nearly impossible to source true ambergris from natural origins. And this scarcity is what led perfumers to create synthetic alternatives. Today, we rely on ingredients like ambroxan and bretellide and other synthetic ambergris. to recreate ambergris' complex, musky scent without the need for an animal byproduct, right? These compounds have become staples in a lot of modern perfumery, offering similar qualities to the natural ambergris, but without the ethical concerns, which is important, right? I actually have met a lot of people who are very, concerned about like vegan perfumery. How do you come across that a lot at markets and things like that?
Yeah. People want things to be all natural.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I bring up stuff like ambergris, and I'm like, look, we could absolutely get the stuff from the whales, or we could use a synthetic version, which is much better for the planet. It's better for you. It's better for everybody. And like you mentioned before, ambroxan is a component of naturally occurring ambergris, so you don't necessarily need to kill a whale to get that same compound.
100%. So, while the days of collecting ambergris from whales are over, its legacy of distinctive and complex scent lives on. And thanks to advancements in synthetic chemistry, today ambergris-like notes are found in a vast array of fragrances, from luxury perfumes to mass market scents, giving us the rich, earthy, woody qualities we all love, without the environmental and ethical concerns. But that's where we'll leave off today on the science and history of ambergris, from its fascinating formation in the intestine of the sperm whale to its transformation into a cherished fragrance ingredient. Ambergris is a substance that's as complex as it is captivating. It's amazing how the substance, once a mysterious excretion, has shaped the world of perfumery, bringing depth and longevity to the scents that we wear today. So, with that rich history and chemical background in mind, let me hand things over to my co-host, who's going to dive into ambergris' impact in pulp culture and how modern perfumers continue to use this legendary ingredient.
Well, I have some follow-up questions. Before, I've always kind of looked at ambergris both from a historical perspective as well as currently in perfumery as more of a fragrance enhancer. Right?
Yeah.
That it does have its own scent, but, and this is going to come up too when we talk about Baccarat Rouge 540, but this idea that ambroxan with ambergris makes every scent kind of stronger and enhances it, but also gives it this quality of being able to adjust to every person's body chemistry in a way that makes the scent slightly different on everybody.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I love that it's used in so many perfumes. I think ambroxan, ambergris, it's one of my favorite smells. Use it in almost, I would say, like out of 100%, 100 being like every fragrance that I make, I would say I use it in at least like 75 to 80% of my fragrances. It's completely cherished and valued to me as a perfumer because it has fixative qualities, right? So if I'm using like volatile like citruses or florals that don't last super long, the ambergris will help the longevity of them. So I think it's super important, which is also why I have a very limited amount of things that are 100% natural. Even though, in my opinion, ambroxan is a naturally derived in aroma chemical, it's still, I suppose, a chemical. But I feel like that gets into semantics because some people think that essential oils are 100% natural. And I'm like, well, it depends on the extraction method, first of all.
And I think that that's also part of why we're doing this podcast, since this is going to be our first episode. We both work at markets. We both interact with our customers on a regular basis as perfumers. And oftentimes questions will come up like, are your products all natural? And we do want to have that education for our customers and
Right.
for the general public that just because it's not 100% all natural doesn't necessarily mean that it's harmful. And in fact, in many ways, it's beneficial to you, the environment, the whales in this case, to have that synthetic rather than having natural ambroxan.
Fully agree. It's such a weird and unique material to work with. I am curious. I've never smelled true ambergris.
All right. So, to segue to how ambergris is used, our focus for this episode, for those of you who are new and listening, B goes over an ingredient, and then I take a perfume that has that ingredient in it and go ham. So, for this episode, we're talking about Francis Kirkjan. I had to watch so many YouTube videos because I wasn't even going to try that. It's Armenian. It's very difficult.
Oh, I didn't know he was Armenian.
He's born in France, but to Armenian parents.
Okay, cool.
And we're focusing on Baccarat Rouge 540. So, B, what do you know about Baccarat Rouge 540 currently?
Someone shared the GCMS for it, so it's every ingredient that's in Baccarat Rouge 540. And to be honest, it's just a lot of Ambroxan. It's a lot of Ambroxan with like hints of other things. So I do know some of the ingredients that are in it, but other than that, I know that it like became super popular. I couldn't go outside without, when I was living in Brooklyn like a little over a year ago, I literally could not step outside or like go walking around Manhattan without smelling it. Everyone was wearing it for like a hot minute.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I wanted to do with Baccarat Rouge 540 and its focus on ambergris is because Baccarat Rouge 540 is known for being what people on Reddit call beast mode, right? The sillage on Baccarat Rouge 540 is absolutely insane, and a lot of that is due to its high concentration of ambroxan. So let's go into kind of the history of Francis Kirkjan and how he peaked so soon.
Tell me everything. Tell me everything.
We'll get into it.
I'm familiar with him as a perfumer, and honestly, I only know like surface level about Baccarat Rouge. So
I can almost guarantee you that if you have any kind of perfume collection, you have at least one thing that he's made. He's made, I want to say, over 30 different fragrances. 2 of his fragrances are the top selling fragrances in the world.
Holy shit. Please tell me everything.
All right. So, Francis Kirkjan was born May 14th, 1969. He is a Taurus.
Okay.
Which also goes into this overall discussion that we're having with ambergris being Venusian.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who do not know, Taurus is ruled by Venus.
Sure is.
So it makes sense that Francis, I'm just going to call him Francis because I'm not going to be able to pronounce that last name multiple times. Even though we're not buddies, I do not know him personally. I will use his first, like we are friends. So it would make sense that he's known for having this very expensive luxury fragrance that's very high in ambroxan, but with that essence of ambergris. Originally, he wanted to be a ballet dancer.
No shit.
Oh, yeah. And then at 14, he failed the entrance exam into the Paris Opera Ballet School. So in the most French pivot I have ever heard in my life, he went from being a ballet dancer, I wanted to say ballerina, but I feel like that would be a little condescending, so I'm not going to. From being a ballet dancer to going to be a perfumer.
That is the most French thing I've ever heard, for sure.
It's so French. Like, you're like, oh, I can't be a ballet dancer. Okay, I'm going to be a perfumer. Yeah, because those things make sense. And at 14, he rolls into the ISIPCA.
What does it translate to?
It translates to the International Higher Institute of Perfume, Cosmetics, and Food Aromatics.
Fancy.
That is so fancy. And he enrolled at 14. So once again,
crazy.
14. He also got his master's in luxury marketing. But in 1995, he's 26, and he creates Le Male for Jean-Paul Gaultier, which is one of the #1 selling fragrances in the world.
That was one of Dakota's favorite fragrances. They still have a bottle. Every few years they'll like try to find like an original like sealed bottle of Le Male. Wow. Wow, I had no clue that was him at 26. Can you fucking imagine? Oh
yeah.
my God.
That's why I say Francis peaked. He peaked very, very early. So he made that, and I was like, I don't even know what was I doing at 26. Oh, I lost my job. I was getting kicked out of my parents' house. It was a good time. Most of us
I
are floundering. He's making that.
I was celebrating my first year in New York City.
Okay. So you were making gains in your life. I was riding the Hot Mess Express. It's okay. So in 1999, so 4 years later, he is 30. He makes Narciso Rodriguez's For Her, which he co-creates with Christine Nagel, which is
Okay.
another one of the top 5 selling fragrances in the world.
Wow. That's incredible. Oh
For
my lord.
me, one of his creations that hold a special place in my heart is Elizabeth Arden's green tea.
I've actually never smelled it.
It's so cheap. You could get it now for like $12. But like when I was a freshman in high school, that was my scent. It also kind of started this like very green, natural smelling fragrance trend within the world of perfumery. And one of the first ones was green tea by Elizabeth Arden. God, it brings me back. He also got the Francois Coty Award in 2001. So he was 32 at the time.
Wow.
And that's one of perfume's highest honors.
Very prestigious award.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So he was peaking so early. In 2009, so when he's 40, I keep bringing up his age because of everything he did very early. Normally, I'm not going to mention age that much because it's not really that important, but the fact that he was doing all of this so young, I think is really relevant.
I can't imagine, like, honestly, if I could go talk to past me, I would have started a lot earlier. That's honestly iconic and incredible. And I think that just like ties into like dedication and like hard work, and that's just wild. But also like
Absolutely.
access, like bitch, you're French, you've got access to like a perfume school. Get out
Yeah.
of here.
Yeah, so some of it is, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. But I
Right.
do think that that's crazy that he was that young and getting
Blows my
so many honors and making so many iconic perfumes. In 2009, he creates Maison Francis Kurkdjian, which is the fragrance house that Baccarat Rouge is based out of. In 2013, he gets commissioned by the crystal company Baccarat, which when I read this, I was like, oh, yeah, there is a crystal company Baccarat.
Yeah.
Those things are probably connected, but for me, I didn't put them together until I was doing the research for this episode. And I was like, oh, yeah, that
I
would make
remember the
sense, wouldn't it?
I remember the first time I heard of this perfume, I was like, wait a minute, Baccarat like like Baccarat jewels? Like what are we talking about? Yeah, I
Is this
had to
also a
research it.
game? I feel like there's like also a gambling game called Baccarat.
No, is there?
But maybe that is also like I do not gamble, so that could be parts of my brain connecting.
No, you're right. Baccarat, a gambling card game in which players hold 2 or 3 cards hands, and the winning hand being that giving the highest remainder when its face value is divided by 10.
There you go. So there's so many things that Baccarat could have been, but it's connected to this crystal company. And it's supposed to be for their 250th anniversary. So they're only making 250 bottles of the Baccarat Rouge 540. And they sell at the time for 30,000 euro, which is about $32,000 if you're American. So the name Rouge 540 comes from the golden red hue that crystal gets when it's being made. And 540 degrees Celsius is the temperature that crystal needs to be heated to form it into whatever shape that they're making it into.
Wow, I had no clue.
So it actually has to do with the crystal making process, which I thought was super interesting.
That's fascinating.
Originally, BR 540 was only supposed to be the 250 bottles for $30,000, and then that's it. They weren't going to make any more. But it sells out very quickly.
Fast forward.
Yep, and is known as the height of luxury. So about a year after it's initially released, Maison Francis Kurkdjian decides to bring it on as a permanent fragrance. The initial supply sold out in a month when they bought enough that they estimated to last them for 6 months. So kind of from jump, this fragrance was insanely popular. Part of the hype is celebrities use it as a status symbol, right? That's also why when you mentioned going around Manhattan and smelling it all the time, it's always kind of been connected to luxury and status, smelling rich, smelling expensive, right?
Of course, yeah.
I should also mention that now that Rihanna has Fenty, she has her own perfume, so she's not wearing Baccarat Rouge 540 anymore, but it was one of her signature fragrances, and that's part of why it blew up. Then TikTok found it.
Yep.
Guys, we're recording this like a day after TikTok got unbanned. So it went away, and then it came back, and now we're recording. So hopefully TikTok is still around when this episode launches. But everybody, once again, associates it with smelling rich, smelling luxurious, and in 2023, videos tagged with Baccarat Rouge had over 621 million views. Yeah.
Holy shit.
It's crazy. Part of this is due to its price tag, okay, which we have to kind of discuss. So for a 2.4 ounce of Baccarat Rouge 540, the MSRP, or standard retail price, is $335. And that's just of the eau de parfum. They have stronger versions that run more money. In comparison, Ariana Grande's Cloud, which many people say is similar, although I don't necessarily think it's similar. I think Cloud 2.0 is more similar to Baccarat Rouge. I don't think Cloud is. That retails for $70 for a 3.4 ounce. So you're getting way more perfume for $70. Francis considers that what makes the fragrance so unique is that it's a gourmand with a large amount of ambroxan, like we've mentioned before. It's what gives BR540 this beast mode factor, right? It's very persistent, and it's a very, very strong sillage, right? I have been in rooms and been like, someone's wearing BR540 because they walk through the door and you could smell it. And that's how BR540 is talked about in pop culture. With the reboot of Gossip Girl, there's two characters who are conversing. They hear a door open, and they're like, do you smell that? Or Baccarat Rouge 540. And they know exactly who walked in. Also, it's a townhouse on the Upper East Side, so it goes with that very expensive, very rich, very luxurious aspect of Baccarat Rouge 540. So in 2017, Maison Francis Kurkdjian was sold to LVMH, which is the company that owns Louis Vuitton, Givenchy, Sephora, among every other expensive French company.
Right, of course.
We do not know how much it was sold for because that was behind closed doors.
Sometimes it's suffocating if you are walking directly into someone's sillage and your mouth is open.
It doesn't stop. But that, I think, speaks to Baccarat Rouge 540 and also speaks to Ambergris and Ambroxan as just this, it lasts, it's going to be there forever, and it's going to leave an impression.
So LVMH has it now. They have the rights to it. They produce it.
Which is also why a lot of people in the perfume talk and perfume discussion base have said how MFK has kind of changed in the last 2 or 3 years. That it used to be more oud and Ambroxan heavy, and now it's very green and fresh. And part of that is because my boy Francis is no longer working for the company. As of 2021, he's the creative director for perfumery for Christian Dior.
Oh, okay.
So he's not even with the company with his name on it. People have said how MFK has changed over time, but that's also because this iconic perfumer is no longer working for the company and creating the fragrances that made the brand so iconic in the first place.
So wild. Oh, crazy.
Fascinating, right?
It's so fascinating. Wow. I love that. I wish we had another perfumer here to talk about ambergris with. What if we just like on a separate, like we could do like mini episodes where we like interview other perfumers?